Hello and Allahu Akbar, the Baha'i greeting to all the people of the earth. I intended these videos starting from about 10 videos before towards the Chinese people and the government of China, because they have not been addressed at the time of Baha'u'llah by the Shoghi Effendi or others. So I feel obligated to do that. But actually the video is for everybody else. Anyways, time is 10:21. It is Friday night and it is the 2nd of December 2022. This video, I basically going to name it as the Baha'i Faith, the mathematics of life. And I'm going to explain what I mean. Today everyone knows most of the religions in the world, they do not comply with science. There's a big gap, between what holy books of the past from any religion say, as opposed to the scientific discoveries in a couple of centuries. Baha'i Faith is the only one, the only religion clearly says that, Abdul-Baha says that, if the religion goes against the science, it will become mere imagination. Okay, I translate it, but that's what it says in some answered questions. We Baha'is, we believe the religion that we have, the ideology that we follow, the doctrine that we have, it complies with science. Basically, we take over when science is left out. Anything scientifically can be explained. It could be proven that it is acceptable to people. It is useful to people. It is solving the problem. Then we just take that. Baha'i Faith does not have any idea there. Baha'u'llah simply says, if you're sick, you have to go to a professional doctor, a licensed doctor. He says that. They themselves, Abdul-Baha would hire to get an actual doctor when he needs it, when he needed it. So, science in the past, if we go to the past, really science and philosophy, everything was the same thing. Scientifically, they say Thales, the first Greek, scientist, about some 500 years before Christ, that he says the matter comes in liquid, or it's in solid, or it's in gas, form. He's the first scientist, they say. Gradually, in the past 2,000 years, mankind is going more and more scientific and less philosophical. This has been the trend. However, today, 21st century, when it comes to the truth, more than 99% of our daily life as a society, as a person, is based on personal philosophy or accepted philosophy. There is no science how to marry, how to conduct as a husband, as a wife, how to raise children. There's no science in there. People are using their own philosophy or philosophy of others. So science, the base for the science is mathematics. Basically everywhere, if you look at it, more or less. Physics uses a lot of mathematics, chemistry less. But even the science of biology, which is experimental, its basis is mathematics, because They go in the laboratory, and they examine different ways and different conjectures, shall we say, intellectual guesses. And finally, when they formulate a vaccine, there's a lot of mathematics involved in creating those chemical compounds. Mathematics is the base for most of the science. But mathematics cannot be the science. How to vote? Which party should you vote? Democrats are good or Republican? It's very hard. When it comes to here, things become shabby. It's the realm of conjecture or philosophy. Here the people have problem. Fight and wars are right here because there are different ways of doing it. Chinese, they think communism is the way to go. Americans, they think is capitalism to go. Iranian, they think, or at least they thought, religion ways to go as they did in Iran. So there are many ways of doing this. And people in these countries, especially their government, sometimes they go to war based on that. Because there's no basis for which we can measure things. This is why Baha'i Faith has been revealed by Baha'u'llah. Because he's the infallible source, which I want to prove it to you. And the Baha'i Faith is revealed by God, which means the prime will. We're the small will, but he's the prime will. He's the blood that's circulating entire existence a lot in human being. That's why we can talk. It is coming from that source. That infallible source have created laws, ordinances, statements, facts, that based on that, we can, as a criteria to use it, to formulate a proper government. For example, Baha'i Faith says politics and religion should not be mixed. A religious leader should not become the prime minister or the government in a country. It says that a long time ago. It was in the 18th century. Now let's see. Iranian, they said, nah. But 40 years ago, the Shah of Iran was replaced by a demagogue called Ayatollah Khomeini. People that thought he's a religious leader. Look at his beard, look at his turban, look at his, garment. It's all religious. Of course we prefer him over the Shah. They did, and they're suffering right now. A suffering, only I know what they're suffering, okay? You cannot even fathom unless you live at least 1 week in Iran. It's different from living anywhere else. Anywhere else. Nowhere else on the planet is as difficult as to live as it is in Iran right now. And around that time, somebody who hasn't heard about the Baha'i Faith or about Baha'u'llah, namely the 66 delegates that they signed the Constitution of the United States, George Washington, and later on, Abraham Lincoln, they all agreed that religion and politics have to be separated. They didn't hear this from Baha'u'llah. They didn't learn from him. It was their own intuition. Okay? Got him. But you see, it works. It has worked past 200 years. So, because when we use Baha'i Faith as a criteria, you see, George Washington went with this criteria. Iranian today, they didn't. So then this is a fact. Based on it, you don't have to go to experiment to find out. As long as you understand that big willpower has created everything, including the body and the soul of mankind, and is flowing within this body and soul, communicating with this body and soul, that big one comes for a visit every 1,000 years in a major event, which we call him Jesus Christ, Moses, Muhammad, Baha'u'llah, Rama, whoever. He has come. And he said, don't do this. He says, the man and women have equal right. Those days, even in the United States, there was no voting right for women. Nowhere, basically, on the planet. Now, gradually we see that we are evolving through that. The West, they didn't learn from Baha'u'llah or Baha'i Faith. They might have in 1912 when Abdul-Baha was there. He talked about equality of man and women's right. But essentially they haven't learned this or obeyed Baha'i Faith or Baha'u'llah or recognized him. They simply reached to this. So it seems the trend of the evolution of mankind is going where already Baha'u'llah has said this is where it has to go. So you can pay the price to get there, or just to listen to the one who is your begetter. This is the biggest waste right now on the planet, that we are not understanding that this system of this universe is controlled by a superpower who has a will, and his will is within us, and he comes and visits us. We're not understanding how much Christianity helped Europe, how much Muhammad helped Arabs to create the greatest civilization with millions of books written. How much Buddha helped the Chinese of those days to understand, to bring the balance in their life. How much Rama helped mankind when he went after his wife and he set the family values so people stay faithful to their wives. Why not today? This revelation is being among us for 150 years. Hundreds and hundreds of words of Baha'u'llah and his teaching has become a fact in the laboratory of the universe. We have experimented and we reached to the conclusion that this Iranian, representing the will of God, the manifestation of God, is right, is correct. He says what nobody is listening right now, that we need to have a universal government on this planet. We have come too close by means of our own invention. It's no longer Japan is a fantasy. We know it every day. We can communicate with the individual Japanese. Something we couldn't do it 100 years ago. So the world has become smaller. It might be a big world, but mankind is touching each other. So all these differences is causing war, causing fight. So we have to have a universal government to stop the waste. So, conclusion is simple. In order to resolve this philosophical problem, any part of humanity and human life that science cannot determine what is right, Baha'i Faith is that mathematics. Says the couple, they want to live with each other, they have to take the permission from their mom and dad to marry. Permission. Not arranged marriage, but permission. They raised you. He says they have to have a time to see each other, visit each other. When they marry, there is a set of principles that these individuals have to oblige, have to believe into. Husband and wife, they cannot drink alcohol. Therefore, alcohol is not an issue. And the outcome and result of alcoholism is not in this family. They cannot smoke joint, pot, hashish, and other drugs. They have to raise their children. They cannot beat them, punish them physically. Not allowed. Since husband and wife already they are raised under this principle, when they come together, their marriage, half the problem, most of the problems are already solved. The husband doesn't have a problem that his wife is going to commit adultery, or the husband or wife. They know that they can't be criminal, committing crimes. So problems. But right now the marriage in the West is like an open mortgage. I am with you till I find another one better. That's not a Baha'i marriage. So if we look and understand, Baha'u'llah, Baha'i Faith has brought certain philosophical facts that are the basis of basic living in this planet. You can build up on that, but you cannot dismiss it. This is what Baha'i Faith is needed, is necessary. You say, why? Why he's teaching? Others have said the same thing. The problem, my friend, is that ever since Baha'u'llah has come, thousands of philosophers and all kind of politicians, lawyers, this and that have come. Many religions, false prophets, whatever you want to call it. None of them have been able, to the degree that the Baha'i Faith has been, to unite mankind of all backgrounds. Only among the Baha'i society you will find a Palestinian Baha'i and a Jewish Israeli Baha'i whose background was Jewish. This guy's background is Islam. They are sitting together in an assembly, in a Baha'i assembly, and they're discussing. And they have nothing to do with what the past was. This degree of unity, in where all the religions of the world, all the nations, all the languages, only Baha'i Faith has been able to achieve it. It's a small number, but it is for sure taken over. Why? Because the teaching of Baha'u'llah 150 years ago has been adopted by many people in the world, by almost all of them. For example, at the time of Baha'u'llah comes this compulsory education. Children have to and must go to a school. Today, everywhere in the world, this is the case. It's a compulsory. Every kid has to go to a school. It wasn't the case 150 years ago anywhere in the world. So you see, Baha'u'llah is like a person on a satellite who knows where humanity is going. Then he comes down and says, guys, you are going from here this way. These are the obstacles. These are what you have to do to save your life and time. Why? Because he thinks all of his teaching, his formula, is basically like a prophecy. He says we have to do this, and we're doing it, and we're not recognizing it. Then where is it coming from? And we say, no, science is allowing. No, science cannot do it. If science was able to do all these things, why Canadians, they don't like Chinese? I mean, the Chinese government. Why there is so much disputes, so much wars. People are not able to convince each other at any level, any degree, not all of them. Greta might be able to convince certain Western countries about the environment, but Indians and Chinese are not going to listen to them because she can't cover everything. Only Baha'i Faith in the laboratory of this planet for the past 150 years has been able, with the least of the means. You don't see Baha'i advertising on TV, on radio, on magazines, nothing. With the least of the means. They have no holy places, basically like Jehovah's Witnesses church in every town and every cities. They don't have that. They just do it in each other's home. But more than 7 to 10 million of the people on this planet have been accepting it. But the point is that they're from Eskimos in the north, Djibouti is in Africa, people in Saudi Arabia, from all the creed and the nations, they have accepted it. On one hand, on the other hand, we're witnessing, Baha'is are witnessing, things that Baha'u'llah has said to be done in this planet. It's actually happening by us paying huge prices. Baha'u'llah says, the government, the kings, president, they have to get united together. And if a king or a president or some government rises against the others, they all have to unite. Isn't that what NATO is doing right now? Well, we're doing all of these things. Why don't we go to look for the sources? Because then we can see every other thing that this man has said to us. We can then prevent wars. Isn't this too logical, scientific? It's beyond scientific. It's tangible. It's observable. You can actually see it. So that's what the mathematics of life is. So, Baha'i Faith, when it comes to the social values, the spiritual values, and even the material values, Baha'u'llah has said all these things in the area where science dies. For example, let's get to the hardcore physics. No one knows what was this universe look like or its status before Big Bang. They don't know. They don't know what's happening to black hole. What is a black hole? Some scientists deny it even exists because they say it is not scientific existence. Why? Because based on the Max Planck constant, an energy can be in the smallest amount. It can be less than that, but it's a certain amount, a quanta, where quantum mechanics comes. You can have less than a quanta, a Max Planck. But they say our calculation about the condensation of a star to becoming crunched into a black hole, it goes to the size infinitely small. Well, infinity does not go with the Max Planck level of energy. So they don't know. They say it's not. So that means the whole science that they have here right now, relativity, everything else has to be revisited. So I am a Baha'i scientist. Here I talk to you about the same issue that science cannot do it. I tell you simple, and it's a philosophical truth. Look at the black hole. You don't know what it is. But there are evidences that we see how light is going sucked by a center unknown to us. And we see how the black holes are coming about. It's a sun that runs out of fuel, which is hydrogen, turns into helium, becomes a red giant, and then it goes on and turns into heavy metal like iron. At which point the weight of this huge ball becomes heavy in the center and goes right into the center. It gets crunched to the point, and a big nebulonic, explosion comes around it. And it's a very big star, way bigger than ours. It becomes a black hole. That means infinitely small. Well, if this is the case, why can't we see the Big Bang was actually the matter at the time of the Big Bang must have been the entire universe crunched into something that had no time and no motion, because it was not made out of anything at that point. Everything crunched into one thing, unknown. Well, that's the prime matter. This cannot on its own to explode. There has to be something outside of this, banged it, and exploded like an egg, like a dynamite. Well, outside of the matter is metaphysics. Well, that metaphysics again, they say, well, conjecture. No. Metaphysics, the sign of it is very simple. The design that requires to make this camera does not have a nature. Design is manifested by material. But what this design itself is, we don't know. No one knows. You can displace and arrange electron within a disk to become a movie. But electrons are the same electron. You can use the grain of rice, like an ink, to write a book. What's the nature of the book? Is rice. Is rice book? No. The story is not rice. What is then the story? Story doesn't have a nature. It just manifested itself by arrangement of this ink, these rices, to become a book. Well, that's metaphysics. And who the hell makes the design? Us, we human beings. Well, if we make something metaphysical, then we must be metaphysical. Part of us, some part of us. Then we are sharing something with us. We are not aware of it. Because we have not come to the point that man is not physics. Nothing is physics. Everything is manifestation of something metaphysical. Physics is one side of it. But that itself is not physical. That is reality. This is just a manifestation. The reality of a car is the design stored in the computer. It's not the car. Car can die. You can make again the same car using that. So who takes precedent? The design. And who's making this design? Us. So part of that big designer is within us. Then of course we design this camera and everything else. But we see Earth, we see planet, then we say there must have been some bigger designer. And when we look at it, we say can't be like us, because our design can be duplicated. A camera can be duplicated. But it seems there's no duplicated things in the nature. Even Hegel says that. There's no redundancy in the nature. Everything is unique. Every moment is unique. So that means somebody is not thinking. Somebody is just willing. Maybe it's just breathing and becomes universe. That we know of. So that thing is big. Way bigger. And this being must have been visiting us. Why not? He made us to think, to talk. And I proved it to you on the previous video. He says, I loved your making. I wanted to make you. Just like an inventor who had in his mind to make a car. And it takes him years to finally invent it. Us, we human being, He says, you were there, Baha'u'llah says, with me. But you were in darkness. You were nothing because you had a will, but you had no means to show it. This is why I made your soul, which is your software, to think. And I made you a body, which is like your computer, a software and a hardware. So you can use this and you think and you cooperate and collaborate with others. Thereby, you can develop a spirituality, giving, forgiving, consideration, humility, service. That's most of us we do. Humanity does. Every human does something good always in their lives. Always. Based on their understanding. So then we say there is a big will. But the will has to belong to somebody. Well, that somebody is the essence of God. That's completely unknown. To me, in my own understanding, I say that is love. Because the Bible said God is love. It must be the love who has the will, because love has the will to do things. It must be the love, the real maker, who has a willpower, who's sharing it in a small amount to everything, to all of us. So then the Baha'i Faith is coming from him as an alphabet of how to write the book of life, the book of living, the constitutions. So Baha'u'llah has given those facts to us, free of charge. We give him a price. We killed 20,000 of his followers. We put him in prison for 40 years, prison and banishment. And he never asked a penny for writing this book or telling these things. None of it. Time has come for us to understand. We are just like at the time, 14th centuries, when Copernicus came and said to people, hey, the earth is not the center of universe. Sun is not revolving around the earth. It's other way around. The earth is revolving around the sun. It's not geocentric, it's heliocentric. That changed a lot of things. Just that idea. We are living at the same time that we don't understand. It is the metaphysic that is the reality. And it is not necessarily good or bad. Somebody could design a bomb. Still as a designer. That to be a believing in metaphysics doesn't make a person a spiritual. What you want to do with it, it makes you a spiritual or not a spiritual. That's a higher level. But this is a basic understanding, even if you are Adolf Hitler, that metaphysical part of us is responsible for everything. And from there, we have to see who is the metaphysical power behind this universe. And maybe start to communicate with him. He's trying to communicate with us at least for 12,000 years. Through the prophets, sons of God, manifestation, avatar, all kind of ways. And today his name is Baha'u'llah, glory of God. If we cannot see this, it's like we don't believe there is a sun in the sky. Is that bad? We can't be human. I cannot even insult animals to say we are even animals if you don't see this. It's so basic. Even if you're Al Capone, you have to know there's metaphysics behind the gun that you're using it. This is the biggest fact that we're just ignoring. And people are telling me that, no, everything is in the brain. Sure, brain reacts, body reacts every time the man touches the computer, which is us, touching the soul, and soul touches the body, and then we see things. This effect that we see in our brain and our behavior, the root and cause is somewhere else. Why? Because the design requires to make this glass. Without it, you can't make the glass. Glass is not natural. We made it. How? By designing. What is the nature of design? There is no nature to design. Therefore, the person who makes the design cannot be natural. He's a supernatural. That's us, me and you. Now, it's not good or bad, but it is a self-supernatural. It's us. We got to get to this bottom. This is the number one reason why Baha'u'llah has brought the Baha'i Faith. To create a mathematics for the areas that we don't know what the truth is. We don't know how to marry. We don't know how to create a constitution, a country that works. We don't know what to do to stop the cause of hatred. We don't know. He tells us things, free of charge. And we're telling him no. What should he do? I tell you what's going to happen. He does not punish us at all. For him to punish us is like a mother wants to punish his own child. He doesn't. He's bigger than the mother. He doesn't even get angry what we do. He just feels pity all the time. Our punishment is our own wishes and what we want. Bob says, the hell is what an infidel desires. Paradise is what a believer desires. Fulfillment of a wish of a bad man, that is his hell. Aren't we in hell in the planet with all the scientific things that we are doing? Where are we? What is this American going against the Chinese and Chinese going against them? Is this stupid? Can't you see the good things in both sides and eliminate the bad things? For example, in the US they say that racism of the white. 99% of the racism that's happening in the United States is because these white guys, or maybe black guys, they do not know how to love somebody with a different color, different skin, different ways. So you want to know what the solution is? I'm the Baha'i philosopher. This family of the blacks and this family of the white, they lend each other's child for 1 week. Let the black boy to live 1 week in this white house, and the white guy comes to live with the black. The idea changes. Once you know them, once you put a strive to live with each other, you see they're fantastic. Blacks are fantastic with their behavior and their willingness to share, to be with you, enrich you. That's all it is. It's the habit, bad habit we have. If we invite them into our houses, each other's both, racism will die. We see that there is lack of knowledge. It's like a food that you have not developed the taste. Do it 5-6 times, then you start to like it. I could not even pass by an Indian food when I was a student in India. I would uch. So much pepper goes into my nose. But I pushed myself to gradually eat it. And then I loved masala dosa all the time. I said that, oh, it's just another developmental stage that we have to learn to develop, how others are. So, I think my point is clear to all those who are teaching Baha'i Faith, that Baha'i Faith is a mathematics of the truth at the level of humanity for today, relative to this time, to now, to us. Baha'i Faith is that mathematics as a foundation. It's not everything. We have to have that and understand that in order to build up our family, our life, our own philosophy, and so on. God bless you. Allahu Akbar.